The Ohio State University has been playing football for over 110 years. In that time, literally thousands of players have taken the field wearing the Scarlet and Gray, earning the right to be called Buckeyes. But while the history of Ohio State football is filled with some of the greatest players and coaches in the game, perhaps no single player personifies the great Ohio State tradition and the spirit of the Buckeyes more than one man, college football's only two-time Heisman Trophy winner, Archie Griffin.
It is Griffin coming up the middle, and he squirts loose from three tacklers, crosses the 50, and gets to Griffin. Griffin cutting up to the 10, to the 15, to the 20, still at his feet at the 24-yard line. It is a pitch to Griffin, and Griffin gets the first down at the 30, the 35, the 40, 45, 50.
Griffin coming up the middle, 25, 20, 15, 10, 5, touchdown! And they're mobbing Griffin.
Archie Griffin is perhaps the greatest player in the history of Ohio State football and one of college football's true legends.
He had terrific heart. He had great desire.
He had that ability to make everybody a little bit better.
His intensity level was so high that you never knew what to expect out of him.
He'd pound you and pound you and pound you. The next thing you know, here'd be Arch going another direction.
Oh, he was so quick, and he could turn on a dime. And another thing people don't realize, Archie was strong.
His electrifying style propelled the Buckeyes to unprecedented heights and engraved his name into the annals of college football immortality.
There's no one that could do what Archie Griffin did. He won the Heisman twice, and that says it all.
Yet for all his gridiron glory, it's his unselfish nature and enduring values that shine brightest to those that know him.
Most humble, most self-deprecating guy I've ever met.
Archie made us feel like it was us that made him successful.
It never was what's in it for Archie, it's what's in it for the team.
Not only did people respect him for what he was on the field, but they respect him twice as much for what he was off the field.
In 4 years, I don't think I ever heard Archie swear.
His values are always right with God and family. He's just an incredible person.
An outstanding individual, not only as a student athlete, but as a mature man.
Archie has not only become the goodwill ambassador for Ohio State football, Archie has become the goodwill ambassador for Ohio State University.
If one said, okay, you have to pick the greatest Ohio State player of all time, who would it be? I would say it's Archie Griffin.
And it is Griffin coming up the middle, 25, 20, 15, 10, 5, touchdown! Griffin goes 30 yards for touchdown!
September 30th, 1972. The Ohio State Buckeyes faced off against the North Carolina Tar Heels in what seemed like a typical non-conference tune-up. That lack of urgency was apparent, and the Buckeyes got off to a sluggish start. After 2 possessions, the offense managed just 13 total yards, and things quickly went from bad to worse when a blocked Buckeye punt put the Tar Heels on top 7-0. Midway through the opening quarter, an angry Woody Hayes knew his team needed a spark. What happened next would change the course of Buckeye football forever.
Coach Hayes called me from the bench, and I just kept my position because I just knew he couldn't be talking to me. I mean, I couldn't believe he meant for me to go into the game.
The 18-year-old freshman opened with 5 yards off tackle. 5 more brought the Buckeyes a first down and an infectious new spirit. One carry followed another, and soon the yards were coming in bigger and bigger chunks.
I remember just yelling to Archie, run like you never run before, and I remember his eyeballs were just this big. And I just remember that he was in a zone.
I mean, I was in a daze the whole time, but thank goodness I knew the plays because that was a wonderful opportunity for me. The offensive line did a tremendous job. They opened up the holes, and I was able to find those gaps. Ended up rushing for 239 yards that game.
Griffin's performance set a new Ohio State single-game rushing record and marked the dawn of a new era in Buckeye football. But while Buckeye fans celebrated the arrival of their new gridiron hero, Griffin's thoughts turned to a fellow classmate whose Buckeye future looked bleak after Archie's big afternoon.
And I didn't know what the future held for me as far as Ohio State was concerned. Did I want to play second string behind Archie for 4 years? I don't think I wanted to do that. Well, that following Monday, he came up to me and looked me straight in the eye, and he says, Brian, he says, I've been meaning to talk to you. He says, I'm from Columbus, Ohio. You're from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, which I am. And he said if it had been the other way around, he says they would have asked you to go into that game on Saturday, and you would have done what I did. Well, I just got chills up and down my spine. I mean, after all, he's certainly a statewide hero at this point and a national figure with what he did on that Saturday. And for him to break the ice, I just thought at that point, hey, there's no way that I'm going to leave Ohio State. I don't mind playing behind a guy like this, and I knew at that point, immediately, that we were going to win a lot of football games at Ohio State because of leadership and character like Archie Griffin had.
Archie Griffin's record-setting debut immediately established him as one of college football's brightest young stars. But Griffin's exploits were as unexpected as they were exciting, even to Archie.
I didn't expect to play, first of all, because all week, I was on the scout team.
Archie was third or fourth on the depth chart. He was playing behind a guy named Morris Bradshaw, which was a great player, played in the NFL for a long time.
To make matters worse, Archie's only previous action gave little indication of future greatness.
The first game that Archie played in, he fumbled the ball, his first carry, and then he was pulled.
As a result, I did not think that I would ever get into that North Carolina game because I was still a freshman, still on the scout squad, had fumbled the week before. A game that I just didn't think I'd get into.
And when he got in that North Carolina game, we just looked at him and told him, hold on the football. And the rest of his history.
I'll be honest with you, I have to count it as a miracle because I remember the night before that game. I prayed to get into the game, and my prayers were answered. And I asked the good Lord to help me play to the best of my ability, and he did that. And so I always count that as a miracle in my life, that particular game.
It was just like the second coming all of a sudden. My Lord, what is this all about? And as we said, it never stopped. He never slowed down.
Griffin went on to rush for 867 yards, a new freshman record. It was an unlikely success for a player many experts thought too small for stardom. At Columbus's Eastmoor High School, the diminutive Griffin made a name for himself as a versatile three-sport star.
I was the type of person who wanted to do something every season. When I went into high school, I said, I want to get 9 letters, so I figured I had the letter in 3 sports.
Archie excelled in both wrestling and track, but it was on the football field that his legend was born.
After 1 or 2 workouts, he came up to me and he said, because I was impressed with him because of it, the way he ran and his work ethic. And he said, what do I have to do to play?
Archie made an immediate impact, and by his senior year, he was widely recognized as the top running back in the city and one of the best in Ohio. Colleges from around the country beckoned, but in spite of his success, some felt the hometown kid might be better served outside the city limits.
A lot of people actually around Columbus told me that I shouldn't go to Ohio State. They told me that I was too small and I'd be better off going to a smaller school.
In fact, for a time, Archie appeared headed for Chicago and Big Ten rival Northwestern.
Archie saw a future there, so I called him. I said, hey, I got a kid that rushed for 1,800 yards and scored 28 touchdowns this year.
Then Woody Hayes, he really got on the scene.
Woody used to go see him wrestle because he couldn't have personal contact with him, but he'd go when he was wrestling, and Archie always knew he was up in the stands.
But I can remember the first dinner that I had with him, he never said one thing to me about football. All he talked about was an education. I really didn't think that he wanted me to play at Ohio State. I felt that he looked at me and just looked at my size and said, well, this guy needs to make sure that he gets himself a good education so he can get on in life.
I think Woody always felt that if a kid was a Columbus kid, he kind of had first choice when he wanted it, to see how he fit into his recruiting. And I said, you better get after him.
At another dinner later, we sat down and we talked, and he just convinced me to come to Ohio State. I always said that Coach Hayes would have been a fabulous salesman because he could always get you to say yes. And he was asking me questions, and I was answering yes, 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 yes. And all of a sudden he said, do you want to come to Ohio State, and are you going to come to Ohio State? I said yes.
Woody's salesmanship paid immediate dividends. For the first time since the 50s, freshmen were eligible for varsity play. And with Griffin in the lineup, the 1972 Buckeyes won the Big Ten title, beat Michigan, played in the Rose Bowl, and finished 3rd in UPI's final gridiron poll. The next year, Griffin led the 1973 Buckeyes to an unbeaten season, a crushing defeat of USC in the Rose Bowl, and a #2 finish in the polls. His 1,577 yards represented a new Ohio State single-season rushing record and firmly established him as one of the nation's most exciting players. In recognition, Griffin was named the Big Ten's MVP, selected to every All-American team, and voted 4th in the Heisman Trophy balloting. Such recognition made Archie a regular on the postseason awards circuit and a marked man the following year.
By the time he got to his junior year, every single team has got one thing on their mind. They're going to stop Archie.
He wasn't the fastest guy in the world. He wasn't the fastest tailback that we had. He wasn't the biggest tailback that we had.
But boy, he was a gamer. Archie just he found holes that just weren't there.
You give him the ball, it was like, a switch flipped on him. He kept going and going and going, and Woody loved that.
Griffin was the linchpin to one of Ohio State's greatest backfields ever, a backfield built for running the football.
Well, Archie Griffin played in a system of football that was made for him. I formation, tailback, off-tackle plays, sweeps, running the I formation, and nobody could run it better than Woody.
And with Hayes surrounding Archie with all the other great talent, it's really no wonder that Ohio State was able to succeed the way they were.
In 1974, that talent led the Buckeyes to another Big Ten title, a third consecutive Rose Bowl appearance, and another top 5 finish. And for Archie, 1974 meant even more accolades. He reset his Ohio State rushing record, became the Big Ten's all-time leading rusher, and with his reception of college football's highest honor, the Heisman Trophy, Griffin was officially recognized as the nation's best player. For most, it would have been a lifetime's worth of dreams come true. But for Archie Griffin, the best was yet to come. By the end of the 1974 season, Archie Griffin was widely recognized as college football's most exciting player. But as he entered his senior season, an encore performance was anything but assured.
It was a challenge. We had practically a new line, and they ended up doing a tremendous job. But, after winning a Heisman Trophy, you are a marked man, and the yards got a lot tougher.
Yet even with defenses zeroing in, Griffin continued to flourish.
He'd get those 130 yards, 170 yards. He just got piled up 100-yard games one after the other.
In fact, his growing streak of 100-yard games were often the only source of drama during the Buckeyes' frequent blowout wins.
You're watching the games, listening to games. Archie Griffin, another 100 yards. Every week, 100 yards. Archie get us 100. Yeah, Archie got us 100.
And they now know he has the 100, and listen to the Buckeye stand, Joe. They know he has the 100 now.
I took pride in that, but I think it was probably more important to our offensive linemen than it was to me. They worked so hard. They did a tremendous job. All I had to do was run with the ball.
Archie Griffin never really had a bad game. Woody Hayes was quoted many times as saying, Archie Griffin never really had a bad practice.
By the middle of his senior season, Archie's amazing consistency placed him atop the list of the game's greatest players.
And he has it. He's inside the 15 to the 14. And now Archie Griffin is being carried off the field by the Ohio State Buckeye team. And a bench comes out to meet him. The leading sound gainer in the history of college football, Archie Griffin. And the Buckeyes love it.
After 31 games, Archie's streak finally ended at Michigan. But in fitting fashion, another Griffin, Archie's brother Ray, helped steal a win from the hated Maize and Blue.
It's Griffin. Griffin coming back to the 10, to the 5, and he's out of bounds on the 3.
Ray got the opportunity to pick one off, and that was just a wonderful feeling. And certainly, even though my streak was broken, it didn't bother me at all because we won the football game, and that's what was most important.
The win lifted Archie's record against the Wolverines to 3-0-1 and put Griffin and the Buckeyes in a record 4th straight Rose Bowl. But in Pasadena, the top-ranked Buckeyes fell to UCLA, a team they'd beaten earlier in the season by 3 touchdowns. The upset loss cost the Buckeyes the national title and created a lone void in Archie's otherwise incomparable career.
And that was upsetting also because I think 3 of the 4 years that I was here at Ohio State that we had teams that were good enough to win the national championship. but we didn't get it done.
But even with the loss to the Bruins, the 1975 season was a triumphant climax to Griffin's historic career. Before the Rose Bowl, Archie was awarded with his second Heisman Trophy, an unprecedented and still unmatched feat.
I really didn't know that they would give it to anybody twice. But deep down in my heart, I always looked at the Heisman as a team award. I mean, it was an award where I did well because of the offensive linemen and our offensive football team.
He made us all feel like we were part of that Heisman Trophy. And not only were we part of it once, but we were part of it 2 times.
But Archie's loyalty and dedication were put to the test when he left Ohio State for the NFL.
And the thing I hate most for Archie, because he's such a great guy, he got drafted by the Bengals.
Unfortunately, I don't think the offensive scheme that Cincinnati used back then utilized his talents.
I believe Archie could have done a lot more for this team, because I look at what he did in camp. We would be inside the 5-yard line, and really the only guy that could get the ball in the end zone was Archie. I mean, and it wasn't just now and then, it was just about every time he got the football, he found a way to get in the end zone.
You knew that it was disappointing to him that he was not being able to do more than he could with the Bengals, but he was a team player and he just never complained.
Archie's willingness to sacrifice was a reflection of his lifelong values, ingrained by his family, rooted in faith.
I wanted to do the right thing because one of the things that I always wanted was my family to be proud of me. And I had some younger brothers who, you know, I wanted to be a good example to. And I knew that there were kids out there that looked up to me. So, you know, I wanted to live my life in a way that those people could be proud.
Archie Griffin came from a family that had very, very strong values, and he was a member of a very, very strong team long before he came to Ohio State.
My dad worked very hard his life, and I don't think my dad wanted that for us, my dad nor my mom. They wanted us to get a college education, and they showed interest in what we were doing in school and things like that.
Since we didn't go to college, get to college ourselves, we was gonna make sure that our kids had a college education.
They always wanted us to believe in God, number one, but number two, they wanted us to get college educations.
Griffin got that education. In fact, he graduated 1 quarter early. And after 8 years of professional football, Archie came home to Ohio State, where he works today as the university's Associate Director of Athletics. But more than a capable administrator, Archie doubles in his role as the living embodiment of the Ohio State football legend.
I think it's safe to say that the name Archie Griffin today is synonymous with the long and glorious history of Ohio State football, and Archie has certainly become the goodwill ambassador of the Ohio State football program.
In 2000, a bit of Archie's goodwill was given back when the Ohio State Athletic Department, in a surprise move, officially retired his famed number 45.
I guess that's one of my highlights of being at Ohio State, to have the number 45 retired formally. When I saw Andy Geiger walk out on the field with the framed jersey, then it really hit me, and that's when my emotions kind of took over. It was a very exciting moment for me, and I'll never forget that. That was certainly one of the highlights.
It was an unforgettable moment when Archie's family and friends, his colleagues and teammates, and the fans that adore him could simply say thank you.
He personifies what we want to see at Ohio State in terms of excellence, a standard of generosity, a standard of openness, a willingness to share, a selflessness, and fame, all wrapped into one human being in a rather unique and very, very special way.
He's just one of those guys that come along once in a lifetime. And, for people that don't know Archie Griffin, you're missing out, because he's a great, great guy and a great human being.
He is held in such high regard and high esteem by everybody that he's ever come in contact with.
He's my brother, and I love him to death, not only as a football player, but as a brother.
I truly, truly have a great deal of love and admiration for him. He's a 10.
For all of Archie Griffin's success on the football field, it stands as a testament that those closest to him remember him most for his generous nature, a desire to share his success with those around him. Perhaps Woody Hayes summed it up best. When asked about Griffin, Hayes responded, "Hey, he's the best player I've ever coached, and even a better person." For Buckeye Classics and Archie Griffin, I'm Chris Spielman. Thanks for watching.